Hey there, welcome to day 20 of our No Nonsense November. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, sharing some advice, lessons learned over my last 6+ decades here on planet Earth this month. Every day this month, I like to share just a piece of stuff, information, things that I've learned over the years of studying personal development, studying business, studying life, just living my life and experiencing it, what's worked for me, what hasn't. And I alluded to it, I think maybe even yesterday when we were talking about change being inevitable. I'm not quite sure, but I know I've talked about it one of these days, just briefly, and that is questions. And I know I mentioned primary question. I think maybe when we were talking about motto and our personal mantra on day 17. Well, anyway, today, my life lesson learned is the power of questions. Now, I don't know if you're aware of it or not. I know I wasn't really consciously aware of it until I studied some Tony Robbins in the late 70s, early 80s. And he talks about in his books and in his seminars and lectures, they didn't have webinars back then. I'm dating myself. He talked about that we as humans constantly are evaluating everything and thinking in questions. We ask questions about everything. And if you don't believe me, never believe anything anyone says. Filter it through your own thinking. Remember, day one was think for yourself. Think for yourself and check it out for yourself. As you go about your day to day, tap into and pay attention to your thinking and see if I'm not right, that everything is a question. What does this mean to me? Is this going to hurt me? Do I need to take action about this? Do I need to move or I'm going to get whacked in the head with a branch? Where do I need to step? Everything we do, our whole internal dialogue is actually a series of questions. We ask the question consciously and sometimes subconsciously, and then our subconscious answers it and takes care of us and makes sure we step over the rock so that we don't trip or keeps us safe, right? So this whole power of questions thing, I knew about it, but I didn't really think about it for, a couple of decades. And then in 2010, I had a sudden cardiac arrest and had the opportunity following that event to take some time off away from my businesses, away from work, focusing on cardiac rehab, things like that for about 6 months. I snuck and worked. I'm not going to say I didn't work at all in that period, but I snuck and did things that I wasn't supposed to according to my doctors. But along with that, I was on a journey of trying to figure out what the heck had happened to me and why it happened to me. And I'd always been interested in personal development and things, but I hadn't really had the time or the energy to put a lot of effort into it. And I had some great recommendations from mentors and people I really look up to. And they said, hey, check out this. And I'm going to actually grab it and show you because I'm doing it again this year, going through Lynn Grabhorn's Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting playbook. Now, it's a little woo-woo for a lot of people, but it's a really powerful book. And like the last time I went through it in 2010, 2011, it's taking me about a year to do it again because I go through it and I actually do the playbook and I won't let myself move on until I finish an exercise. So I am stuck on scripting exercise, snowballing and scripting exercise. I'm not stuck on it. I just got sidetracked and a lot of other things have gotten in the way and been a higher priority. Is there ever a higher priority than ourselves? No, but that's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. So that's a question I ask myself. When do I need to do this? Is this important for me? Where does this fit in my other priorities? Always asking ourselves questions and evaluating and then prioritizing based on what's important for us. So a topic that came up as part of that work that I was doing on myself to understand myself and make sure I never ended up in a position like I was in before, like dead and in the hospital and being frozen. I thought once in a lifetime is enough for that experience. What am I going to do to make sure that this never happens again? I did things like, Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting. I did things like listen to tons of, they were teleseminars back then. In 2010, it was the day of the teleseminar still. So teleseminar after teleseminar about mental health, wellness, spiritual health, all the areas and aspects of our life, right? Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, relationships, and contribution. And wanted to make sure I set up a framework and set up processes and systems for myself to make sure that I would never be in that position again. And one of the exercises I did, and I believe I got this from Tony Robbins as well, was, what is your primary question? And when I woke up in the hospital, the first words out of my mouth were WTF. And it turns out my family had been laying bets. My daughter and my sister won because they knew exactly what I was going to say, but they were betting on when I woke up, because they assumed I was going to wake up when they thawed me out and pulled me out of the coma, what I was going to say. Now, I could have been brain damaged and all kinds of other things, but I wasn't. I wasn't at least enough to say WTF. And that's what caused me to consciously realize, really for the first time, that my primary question was WTF. Now, not a very powerful primary question, right? I mean, it's powerful in a negative way in that it presupposes there's always something wrong. What happens if we assume and presuppose that there's always something wrong? We always find something wrong, and we're always frustrated because things aren't the way we think they should be, because we're always asking what's wrong. What's wrong with this situation? Well, if we ask what's wrong with this situation, we're going to find out. Our subconscious, our brain, our mind, we're going to filter through and we're going to find out everything that's wrong with a given situation. So I suppose the only worst question I could have as a primary question was, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with this situation? Might have been better than WTF, but they were virtually the same question. So I spent quite a bit of time and energy changing consciously and reinstalling in my subconscious a new primary question. And at the time, my new primary question became, what am I creating now? Now, that's not a perfect primary question, but it was the perfect next primary question for me, that given that WTF was it before, and now what am I creating now? And that helped me to take personal responsibility and realize, well, if I'm feeling upset or frustrated, what am I creating now? I'm creating more frustration, more upset, more whatever. And it allowed me to take personal responsibility and positive action in the way I wanted to and move my life in the direction I wanted it to go. So my question for you today, through all that discussion, is, do you know what your primary question is? I guarantee you have one. We all do, whether we consciously are aware of it or not. And if you don't know what it is, ask a few people that you're really close to, people you work with, people in your family. I guarantee if you're honest with them and you say, I just want to know, what do you think my primary question is, and not hold it against them when they tell you if you don't like what the question is. Because if somebody had come up to me before my sudden cardiac arrest and said, you know, Sharon, your primary question is WTF. You're upset all the time. You're on a 910 frequency of negativity, looking for what's wrong all the time, I would not have believed them. I would not have recognized it. But because I was, and I had this conversation with my sisters, my daughter, my son, and a few other people after I had this aha moment that my primary question was WTF, and I could not keep that as my primary question if I wanted to be here, 10 plus years later, talking and being a functioning member of the world still. So share in the comments below if you know what your primary question is. You can just say yes or no. And if you say no, I challenge you today to go out and try to actually pay attention and discover what your primary question is. You don't have to ask someone else. If you're tuning into it and looking for it on a conscious level, you'll realize that there's a question that is automatically playing over and over and over again in the background of your mind. And you can recognize that yourself. But if you want a quick and easy way of figuring it out, just ask a couple of people, and you might get a couple different versions of what it is. But, like, why is the world always out to get me? Why does this always happen to me? Those are examples of primary questions that people have that they don't even realize they have, but they set the tone and the direction of our life. They set the tone. They create what we'll even be willing to do or try or attempt, because they limit us. And so we want to make sure that we create then an empowering primary question. I'm not sure if in the next Get Up and Go challenge we will talk about primary question. If we don't, and that's something you want, hit me up in the comments below, and we'll have a discussion on, okay, now that you know your primary question and you want to change it, how do you go about doing that? Because I created my own whole process of doing that, and then analyzing and paying attention to it and giving myself feedback in terms of the results I'm getting to make sure that my primary question is still moving me in the direction I want to go. Because guess what? Over time, we might want to improve and up-level our life by up-leveling our primary question. All right, that's our topic for today. Have an awesome day. If you're brave, share your primary question in the comments below. Again, mine is, what am I creating now? What am I creating now? When I'm sitting on the couch and watching a Netflix show, when we have internet, what am I creating now? Nothing. Or maybe I'm just relaxing, whatever. All right, have an awesome day. If I can help you anyway, ask. Otherwise, I'll be with you tomorrow for day 21 of our No Nonsense November. What's it going to be about? I have no idea. I'll decide tomorrow. Bye.